click record for us, and then we'll save it to Sharon's computer. She's got a nice Mac, so we'll have a recording for you. Fantastic. All right, it looks like you all can hear me, so we will get started. Thank you for that. So I'm so glad that we had an opportunity today to meet. I know I've already heard that Person is leaving at noon today because of the weather, Person County Schools. And, you know, it's been craziness and we don't know how this is going to affect us all. So for your safety, for the safety of our children, we were able to offer this in a webinar format today. So thank you so much for weighing in on that. I contacted several district leaders and we threw around some options. So thank you for collaborating with me on this decision making. I wanted to just let you know that we still have a parking lot today. There's a question box on your dashboard that you'll see on the right hand side of your screen. And that's where you can type in your questions today. And Nikki and Sharon are here with me, and they're going to be monitoring that parking lot and sharing questions throughout our time together today. And anything that we don't get to during the webinar, we will post on the support wiki. So we have a bit of a modified agenda today. Our agenda will be, you're going to hear from some of your colleagues about what they've put in place so far. That's been a goal at each of our sessions together, that you would receive some information, that you would get support in developing your plan, and then that you would return and implement items on your plan. So we're going to hear out today from some colleagues of yours that have been implementing and how it's gone for them. And then we'll do a little bit of review of the 5 critical components, talk about the importance of professional wisdom, and then dive into some new content. And then talk a little bit about some recommendations from the regional implementation team. We're just so sad that we're not going to get to meet with you today during your planning time. So we sent your plans to you ahead of time with our notes. We gave you the plans last session together with the notes, but then we're able to meet with you. So as you meet together this afternoon, please feel free to email or call any of us. I did get some questions about subpay, and I sent an email out to the point people about that. I'm just going to review it quickly in case you haven't had a chance to take a look at that. So really a simple process. We just have to have a sign-in sheet for the day in order to process that payment. And I need to get the sub form to you since we can't hand it to you today. So you just need to send me an address, the best address that I can mail it to you. So if you email me the address to send you the form, then I'll send it to you. And then when you send it back, you just send it with a copy of your sign-in sheet for the day today. And then we'll take care of it. We'll process it for you as we usually do. I also sent a link out with some meeting materials that you're going to need for the webinar today. If you haven't had a chance to download them yet, let me just show you where they are. This is the link to the webinar materials. They're on our support wiki. I'm going to take you there real quick. So when you go to the support wiki, all of the meeting materials for our meetings are housed under the kindergarten entry tab. So if you go to kindergarten entry, I put the March webinar materials right at the top. So these are the things that you'll need for today's meeting. The facilitator's guide, a few handouts, and then a couple of situations, which is our new content for today, and we're going to be using the book and print awareness progression. So if you haven't already done that, you might want to do that now as we continue to go over the beginning portions of the meeting. So the goals for the webinar today are just these two because we're not face-to-face. You're going to hear from colleagues about implementation plans, and then you're going to receive some new content. And I wanted to just provide you an overview of what we've done so far. January, we had our vision content. In February, we talked about the formative assessment process, and then observing children and collecting evidence, and then leveraging our classroom practice. For today's meeting, we'll review the 5 critical components of the formative assessment process, talk a little bit about the importance of professional wisdom, and then writing observation-based notes and utilizing the tools in the facilitator's guide will be our new content for today. Then in April, we will get into using assessment to inform instruction and the technology platform. Just a reminder for your revision keeper and district point person, you received your feedback from the regional implementation team. I emailed that out to you yesterday. So as you update your plans before the April meeting, you can send them on to me. I know some of you will be meeting for the afternoon today to update your plan, and some of you may be setting additional times to meet. So before the April meeting, in order for us to provide you additional feedback, you can email your Word documents to me or invite me via Google Docs. I have a couple of reflections to share with you from our February meeting. We were just so pleased with the way that the February meeting went. Watching you all work together and collaborate during that meeting was just amazing. You were completely engaged, doing purposeful, thoughtful work, and we were just extremely happy to be supporting and collaborating with you. And the evaluations reflected that. Here are the things that you said went well. You loved the extended planning time. There were, so many exclamation points that went along with that, and folks said, we got so much done. We created our PowerPoints. We were creating our training on the spot. And so that was just amazing to see and hear, and being able to share it with partner districts and getting feedback and input and additional ideas. And then having that format and template and getting the feedback. You all appreciated that, and being able to set goals and have a consistent plan. And then the resources. Many people talked about having the examples, the PowerPoints to go to use to build your own, the handouts, and then having it there on the support wiki. And then lots of talk about the formative assessment process overview and how important that was to you, getting the big idea and being able to attach the construct progressions and how they serve as a tool for that work. Many comments about that in the evaluations. And then how the support team was checking in and answering your questions, how you felt heard and valued. And then what needs were expressed. We only had a couple of comments out of over 100 evaluations, and so that mattered to us because we felt like you were really holding us accountable and capable of meeting your needs. And the kinds of things people were asking for is more team time, more examples, more time with partner districts, and the need to see all constructs. So you will notice that all of the constructs are now on the support wiki. They're still in draft form, and we'll have a booklet for you with all of the finalized constructs for the April meeting. So now it's time for the best part of the webinar. We're going to be sharing our work. District leaders have been invited as panelists to share ideas from their plans and what they have implemented so far. I'm so excited about this part. So we're going to have a couple of minutes for each of them to share, and then time for clarifying questions and celebrations. So we're going to begin with Diane Vilwalk at Chapel Hill, and I'm going to unmute her so she can talk with you.
Oh.
Diane, are you there?
Okay. I am. Can you hear me?
I am. Can you hear me? I am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we.
I wonder if you have to click on the little microphone on your computer. Normally I don't go through the phone.
Can you hear me? Cindy?
Yes, Diane, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Awesome. Go ahead. Good morning, everybody. We met with pre-K and kindergarten teachers. Hang on a second. I'm reverbing badly. There we go. We met with kindergarten and pre-K teachers on an early release or a delayed opening day in early February. We framed our time with teachers with an essential question: what is the kindergarten entry assessment and why is it important? As they entered the room, we handed them a copy of a brief article that we had gotten from the wiki, the North Carolina Kindergarten Entry Assessment. It's about a page or two. We asked them to read that as they came in. And then as an activating strategy, we asked them to do a turn and talk and kind of talk about what they had read. After that, I spoke, giving them some of the context. We showed them the 5 segments of the different domains, kind of gave them some big picture details to help them make sense of things. Then we had a activity where we watched the video. We asked them to turn and talk again about what happened during the video that happens on a regular basis in their own classrooms. We were trying very hard during this session to normalize this assessment and make it not as a big different thing. So after the video and the discussion, we gave them a graphic organizer that had 3, it was a 2-column organizer, and on the left it had 3 concepts where they could summarize what they knew. And so they were asked to fill in the blanks, given what they knew, and also talking with their colleagues. And then finally, we had them take out the 2 progressions that we're using next year and read them through, and then begin to brainstorm with what they're already doing in their classrooms to observe the skills listed in the constructs. We used an app called Poll Everywhere, a separate one for each of the 2 constructs, and teachers replied on the internet using their devices, and we were able then to see their responses on screen. And then at the end of the session, we gave them an exit ticket, and we asked them to write about the most important thing they'd learned today, and finally, what more questions do they have about what they learned today. It was received, the exit tickets were very, very positive. People felt this was affirming of the kind of work that they do. The pre-K teachers were thrilled to be involved. And I think that's going to be a real strength for our district.
Thank you, Diane, for sharing. So what I'd like to do is just give people a chance to type in any questions that they have for you. What happens in webinar is everyone is automatically muted. But I'd love to hear any questions from folks that are on the webinar, and really appreciate you sharing your ideas with the group. So we'll wait just a minute and see if folks have any questions for you that they want to type in. Okay, so there is a question that says, why did you all decide to include pre-K?
Um, I just lost the call.
Oh no. Can you do it through the computer? Or microphone?
We still, Diane, we can still hear you.
I don't
Diane?
know if it works.
It is. Yeah, it's working.
Oh, it is
Diane?
working. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I still hear you. I'm going to mute myself, though, so that we don't get feedback.
Is your sound turned all the way up? Or you may want to have to write it. There you
Okay, let's try this again. We're having technical difficulties, but we're getting there. So we felt that pre-K was critical. The domains, when you look at them, include things that pre-K teachers are very good at: the school readiness elements, the social emotional development, and physical development. And we felt that the kindergarten teachers were particularly going to be strong on the more academic pieces, the concepts about print and the object counting. And we really want the teachers at those two levels to team so that we can strengthen the kindergarten teachers using the pre-K knowledge and strengthen the pre-K teachers using the kindergarten knowledge. And so one of our team members is the pre-K director, and the pre-K teachers were just thrilled to be there.
Okay, so any other questions for Diane before we move on? Excellent. So one of our goals is to actually build that connection between pre-K and K, and we actually, Sharon attended that meeting, and we were really excited to see them taking that thoughtful approach to begin to make that connection in Chapel Hill. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so let's move. Paula, let's see. I have to work at muting and unmuting people, so I'm going to unmute Paula so she can speak with us. Paula, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Yay.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm talking from Person County Schools, who is getting out early today because of this potential weather. So I'm glad that we decided to do a webinar. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, Paula.
Okay. So in Person County, what we have quarterly grade span meetings, which include K1 as a grade span, 2-3 as a grade span, and 4-5. And it was very beneficial that shortly after our first implementation meeting that we were having a grade span meeting. So we made the grade span meeting required for all kindergarten teachers, and that would kind of start our implementation trainings with our kindergarten teachers. So we did have 100% participation. All of our kindergarten teachers did attend that meeting to get started with learning about this process. And very similar to Diane, in a lot of the way we kind of presented it, we went through the first kind of module, I guess. Presentation of each of the elements that we wanted to cover, which mainly at the first meeting was the vision. We started the meeting off with the self-reflection that was provided in that implementation team guide, facilitator's guide, and that was very, very interesting. And we had some discussion about how the teachers, their self-reflection on how on formative assessment and that type of thing. So we had opportunities for the teachers to turn and talk. They were very, very participatory. It was a great start, I think, to the KEA process. I think, again, as Diane said, it was reaffirming to them that their work is important in what they do, and they were very much appreciative and definitely agreed that it's more of a whole child approach. So we used the PowerPoint that we had on the wiki to kind of go through the key points, and we did the vision video, and we had the teachers, we had the graphic organizer for them to use where they jotted down what kinds of things they saw in the video that they too are doing, ways of formative assessments, and that type of thing. That was our first initial meeting, and our implementation plan is we laid out was to have a kindergarten, pull the kindergarten teachers together shortly after each of our Region 5 meetings so that all of that information is really fresh in our heads and minds, and we could roll it out to them very in real time, so to speak. With the snow and ice that we've had in the last few weeks, one of our meetings has been postponed, but that will take place now. We have a meeting set up for next Wednesday, the 11th, and our plan for that meeting is the 5 domains of learning. And what we found was that as our pilot teachers, Deborah and Sarah, were pre-K, they are very, very familiar with those 5 domains, but our kindergarten teachers really are not. So we wanted to spend a significant amount of time going over those, and so we did choose some of the modules from the implementation or facilitator's guide to roll that out. And so that will be what we do next week, which is kind of a makeup session from last week or so. And they will, as soon as you did the stick last time, Cindy, the circuit, I got on Amazon and purchased one. So we have that stick. We're ready to do that with the necklaces. I think that'll be a really fun activity. So we're going to do that, and we're going to delve deep into those 5 domains, and they'll have a lot of group time to talk about it. We have video clips and to talk about those. Then we'll also give them homework at that particular meeting, where it's one of the organizers in one of the activities in the facilitator's guide, but we're going to use it as kind of the independent. But they're going to take what they've learned about the 5 domains, and between that session and the next session, which would be on March 21st, and yes, that's a Saturday, we're going to make up a professional development day on a Saturday, and the kindergarten teachers will choose two students from their class, and they will try to observe them and observe them in the 5 domains. So we've got down examples of activities and observations for the 5 domains for those 2 particular students. And so then when we come back on the March 21st, we'll talk about that, as well as start talking about observation and observation notes and that type of what we're going to really talk about today too. So so then we have a meeting scheduled with them shortly after our April Region 5 implementation, this particular setting. We have a meeting with them after that in April. And so then we'll go from there to see what we need to catch up on or interject in to add additional meeting times. Another piece that we're doing in March is on March 24th and 23rd and 24th, all the kindergarten teachers in the district are coming to observe Deborah and Sarah in their classrooms with their students, doing activities and using the observation notes and showing them how, just in your regular everyday lessons, how you would observe and take notes or capture some sort of documentation that you would use in this process. And then the assistants will kind of monitor the class while the teachers we'll go off into another setting with Sarah and Deborah and ask questions and talk about lesson planning and how to incorporate observations into those particular types of activities. So that's something else that we're doing in March. So we have a kind of a busy rollout in March with this whole process. And that's it so far.
Well, that's a lot, Paula. Thank you so much for sharing. So I just want to give a minute or two for folks to type in any questions that they have for Paula about the information that she shared. Okay. Well, let's move on. Thank you so much, Paula. You guys are doing a lot of really great work. And I just have to say, I remember I was fortunate enough to sit in on Deborah's class and see the great work that she was doing during the pilot. So I can only imagine how she and Sarah are working together to share this knowledge with others in your district. So kudos to you all for that.
Yep, thank you.
Yep. We are moving on now, and I'm going to, I'm assuming that, Carissa, are you there with Crystal?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. So Carissa is going to share with us what's happening in Thomasville.
So our district is a little bit different from others. We are a city school district, so our primary school is the only elementary school in the district, and all of our kindergarten teachers piloted the KEA. So our plan looks a little bit different because we don't have any new teachers at the moment to train. The only new teachers we would have are any new teachers that would be coming to our school. When we did the KEA pilot, we were very frustrated because our kindergarten classrooms were not set up developmentally appropriate. So we were struggling to find ways to assess the different things that are on the KEA. And when we met at one of these meetings, you showed us the video of compiled teachers who were within the classroom who were doing the KEA in a developmentally appropriate classroom. And we just saw the huge difference from those classrooms to ours and realized that that is where we needed to move. So we have been visiting other schools who have their classrooms set up with developmentally appropriate centers and open-ended centers that are play-based. And so we are preparing to present this way of teaching to our central office staff so that we can kind of get their approval to move forward in doing that in the future.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And we talked a little bit about this at our last meeting, and really appreciate you all stepping out there and collaborating with others and really using that collaborative nature to incorporate into your plan. It was such a great example. We had in the facilitator's guide last time ways to go about looking at developmentally appropriate practice, looking at the live binder, and you all just went a leap above that in putting this into your plan. So it was awesome to see that. Does anyone have any questions for Carissa? Okay, keep in mind that you can continue to put questions in the question box throughout our time together, and that Nikki and Sharon have their eye on that. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up we have Tiffany Perkins, and I'm going to find her in our panelists. Tiffany, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Our team has enjoyed hearing from the other districts. Ideas that they have shared will definitely inform us in the future as well. So we appreciate that and the opportunity to get any feedback and to share what we've done to this point. We actually started rolling this out with our instructional coaches and K-5 principals in January at some already scheduled meetings. And that's one thing we try to take advantage of times that we already have. I know Person County mentioned that same thing. So we have a model in our district called Connect Team where there is one representative from every grade level from every one of our 15 elementary schools, and we had already scheduled 4 sessions this school year. So what we did was took advantage of the kindergarten session that was already scheduled March 4th and April 22nd and invited all kindergarten teachers to come. And so we had our first session with kindergarten yesterday, and that went fairly well. They had some pre-work. They were asked to watch the video that you all provided from the pilot classrooms and before the session, and I gave them a reflection sheet that was in the manual that we have, the facilitator's guide. And so they were asked to complete those prior to coming, and then they used that information and that experience to complete a KWL chart, basically. And so they, to tell us what did they already know about the process and what did they want to know about the process. And that was kind of an introduction activity to yesterday's first session with teachers. So we had 48 teachers that came, which is 97% of our kindergarten teachers, and so we recognize that not all those teachers might be teaching kindergarten next year. So we will, and we already have talked about, we'll put in our implementation plan what we will do to make sure we provide support and training to any new teachers and a timeline for that for next year. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well. So we went through some different activities and had them work in their school-based PLC group throughout most of the session, and most were sitting at a table with another school, so they also had an opportunity to share across schools. We focused yesterday on the vision and formative assessment. We worked on both of those. The energy stick activity was probably the most popular because the way we did it was we asked for 5 volunteers, as each volunteer was crowned with a component of the teaching and learning process or the K-3 Formative Assessment Process. Then I would kind of give a brief description of each of those components and ask how many of you select learning targets in this way. They could very much connect with that. So they connected with all 5, and then I had the group stand in a circle and hold hands at, of course, each end of the energy stick. And, of course, they were like, oh, how'd that happen? And so that was cute. And then asked eliciting evidence of learning to step out of the circle. And, of course, that really, I think they were able to visualize that all these things are connected. There's no beginning or ending point. And if one is missing, then the light may not come on for our students. We're not making those connections as well as we could. So that was a pretty popular activity. And we, of course, went through an overview of the domains of learning, the constructs. We spent a little bit of time on specifically the object counting because we thought that would be a good one to start with. It's pretty concrete. And so they did an activity with that. And they have some pre-work for the next session, which the directions I gave them was pretty much don't do anything differently, like unless you have an aha moment and really want to do something that's, you find something better for kids to do, but just to go through their regular routines, not do anything special, but they need to record a response, become familiar with the object counting construct, and then record a response to 3 questions. One is, what were some experiences where you were able to identify where a student was or students were on the progression? What evidences did you observe or could you collect to support your thinking? And what did you do with that information? So really just helping them see that this truly is a part of things they're already doing, and to to hopefully have them internalize that construct and really be able to notice more and observe, be more careful observers of what students are doing without it being a separate one-on-one assessment. And so before they left, we had them write down what they learned in the session and then what were lingering questions. So we had 2 L's in our KWL chart. But and the lingering questions we'll use to help guide our planning for the next session. And generally, the lingering questions revolve around they really want to see the application or the technology component to kind of wrap their minds around that a little more. And then, of course, the structural components of we have, well, that everybody does, but just wanting to know how can I organize my schedule and organize a large number of students to really take this on and be efficient at it without negatively impacting what they're doing with students. And I think the planning time is a challenge. It's very limited in elementary. I think that's a statewide issue, and really giving them the structures to plan with the data. You know, if they're collecting it formatively as they should be, but when do they have time to really do something with that? So that's something to work with administrators and their school implementation teams. And we will have a meeting before the summer with the teams there together to help support them in developing a school plan.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Does anyone have questions for Tiffany? Now is a great time to put those questions in the question box. Oh, okay. So we had a question actually for Thomasville, which was where did teachers visit, or where were they going to visit? And they actually were visiting their neighbor district, Lexington, and also the demo site, which is Walkertown Elementary. Then I see another question here that says, what are the questions that the teachers were going about their day answering?
Think about them.
And that one's for you, Tiffany. What are the questions that the teachers were going about their day answering?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, and I'll be glad if anyone who, we did adapt the PowerPoint, we kind of inserted different slides from the first 2 training sessions, and one of the slides actually has those questions on there, and I'll be glad to send anybody the link to the Google slide presentation that we used. But just quickly, so they were to read and take time to become familiar with the object counting construct, go through their daily routine as they would prior to the training, and record what were some experiences they were able to identify where students were on the progression. They can pick a student or multiple students. What evidences did you observe or could you collect to support your thinking? And what did you do with that information? So those were the 3 questions that they're really, and just doing a journal entry. It's very informal. And they'll bring that back to the next session, and we'll use part of our time for them to brainstorm and think about more about how, you know, yes, this is already a natural part, or are there some areas, and we'd like to do some summer work too with our Kindergarten Connect team on making sure teachers feel comfortable with the alignment between the Common Core standards they're expected to teach, but also the 5 domains that they are, you know, how can that be integrated and organized? I think that'll help our teachers too.
That's great work, Tiffany. And I think you're going to find, that question was from Marcia, I saw, and I think you're going to find in the facilitator's guide this time some similar activities along the same thing that Tiffany did with her group. that will allow teachers, there's a reflection template there that will allow them to think about here, and we're going to go over that as part of our content today, but here are, it's called a current practices reflection template. But here are, think about the 5 critical components, think about the construct progressions, and here, and then there's a column for my activity. And we'll go over that today as well. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Appreciate you sharing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay, so our next panelist is Eva Phillips. Eva, can you hear me? Oh, she's getting applause.
Hold on, Cindy.
Eva, I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I'm turning it down.
Okay. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hello. Okay, so can you hear me from here, Cindy?
We can hear you just a little bit, and then we're getting some feedback. It sounds like engine roaring or something.
I'm trying to find the right place.
Oh, there it is again.
In the room.
Yeah, that's like when I was at our last session. I kept getting a little feedback every time I stood in a certain spot.
So let's try right here.
Okay, I can hear you. Oh, no.
It's down on the ledge. Better? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, but whoop. So now it sounds like there's an alarm going off. Are you having a fire drill?
I don't really know. I don't know what's going on. Cindy, can you come back to us? Is there anybody else that's sharing?
You're our last sharer, but I will definitely come back to you. Can you just type us a message when you're ready?
Yes.
Perfect.
It's kind of working now. No, it's not.
Okay, so we'll come back to Eva when they are working out their sound issues. You know what? Technology just happens all the time like that. So I wanted to just take a moment to talk with you, and we already heard when Paula was sharing, she talked about, well, you know, we've had to reschedule, and I know many of you have had to reschedule, and when Eva talks with us, she'll talk about the innovative ways that they've been going about their work due to the snow. These two cuties are Nikki's daughters, and what they did on the snow day. First, let me just say, I don't want to let this go by without saying I took a ton of notes while you all were sharing. Oh my gosh, the fantastic work that you were doing, all of these great adult learning strategies that you were using, you know, the pre-work that we know from the research that we talked about at the very first meeting, you know, assigning a little pre-work and homework, you know, that really works with adult learners because then they know I can do some of this work on my own. It's not just about FaceTime, and it helps engage the learner. And then so many of the things that you, and then so many of the things that you are using from the resources and tools, but then you are adapting them and making them your own. So you know, we're creating things, but you are owning them and creating your own PowerPoints from them, coming up with your own ideas, using the facilitator guide, and then making it your own to meet the needs of your district. I also love that energy stick has been helpful for you. You know, sometimes I do kooky things to try to make a point, and so I'm glad that it's working. And you know, I wrote down that comment that Tiffany said, if one is missing, the light may not come on for our students. Oh my gosh, I'm going to use that. I'm all about borrowing something that is amazing that will stick. And the lingering questions, I think that's important, that we need to continue to, you know, that's why we want to build this with you and continue to gather your input. It's really important that we consider teachers' planning time and have this efficient use, and continue with the feedback loop, which is what we're really going to focus a lot on today. As we implement, we want to keep this feedback loop in place so that we know when we hit challenges and we can work to address them. If it's not working for teachers, then we need to make changes. So I just wanted to take a moment to talk about that, what great ideas you all shared and how valuable that is for all of us to hear. So, you know, it's been snowing and I'm from Ohio, and, you know, it felt like home to me, but it all, you know, many of us lost power and we were dealing with lots of things that were uncomfortable. So we need some creative solutions. We've lost some days. Many of us are looking at losing our teacher work days for the rest of the year, losing, you know, some of us had early release days that we're losing. So I thought we could share some ideas. We can use the chat box to just type in one idea to share with the group. So let's just take a moment to do that now. You'll find your chat box on your dashboard. And Paula, I see, has typed in an idea. And make sure that you are chatting to everyone. Paula typed in her idea and it came to organizers and panelists, and she said Saturday and offer a voucher for an optional work day or to make up for a snow day. That was optional for teachers, but they could not get to the school. So be sure when you're chatting in the chat box that you check your pull down menu and you're sharing it with everyone. But let's just take a moment and let's just brainstorm. If we were face to face, what we would be doing is doing a share out and capturing it on chart paper, kind of old school. But since we're doing webinar, let's just type an idea in the chat box and we'll just take a moment or two to do this. So Eva just shared one, but it looks like it just went to panelists. So I'm going to try to share. I thought I shared it with everyone, but I didn't see it go through. Okay. So Eva, can you send it your chat again and send it to everyone?
Also, I don't think Carrie Little's went to everyone because it didn't come up on mine.
Oh. Oh, so, okay. So Eva said that they have that they have 214 kindergarten teachers who they need to train. And they had this awesome plan to bring everyone together on 2 different days and do an orientation and then meet with teachers in smaller groups after that. And they had 2 separate days set up, and both of them got snowed out. Oh my gosh. So now they're making it up, doing a voice thread to go along with their PowerPoint and sending it out in a link to folks. So what a great innovative way. Let's see. I didn't see Carrie's. Did you see it?
She's going to be moving workshops to online format.
Oh, so Carrie said she's going to be moving, Chatham is moving to Google Hangout and air live video trainings. Nice.
So she's typing in.
I just found it. Just got an update from Eva saying that they got a tech person on the way to help with their sound situation. Chapel Hill says they're considering an afternoon webinar. Oops, I just lost it. Considering an afternoon webinar with PLC teams remaining at school and with pre-K teachers. They'll give them an assignment to be done in advance so that they can discuss and go deeper in the meetings. I know Chapel Hill has lost their early release days, and so that really impacted their plan. So doing an afternoon webinar is a nice option. Any other ideas before we move on? It's just something, you know, we're really going to have to think about. And when we go through the facilitator guide today, the facilitator guide always has some independent options. So it's just something to think about. I'm going to highlight those for you today. You know, what can we turn into an independent option for folks? Along those same lines, we need to start thinking about how school teams are going to find these resources. We're trying to do a much better job at DPI of putting all of your resources in one place. We have the regional support wiki that's just for our region. And then on that one tab, you can find, let me take you to it, I should have it here. So then on that one tab, you can find the live binder at the top, where you can find your PowerPoints, videos, and training handouts, and then all of the meeting materials. So it's one-stop shopping, right? So everything that you need as a district implementation team member is right here on this one tab. And then anything else that we need as a region will be right here, and you can find additional information. So after this webinar, assuming that we're going to record okay, I can post this webinar as well. Oops. Okay. So that isn't the place to send your school teams, though, right? Because the school teams, they will need more specific kinds of information. That site is for you all to get what you need for the meetings that we hold together. So when you're thinking about your school teams, you'll want to have a place where they can go to get just what they need, so it's not an overwhelming amount of resources that they have to sift through to find what they need. And many of you have started developing those places, and we're noticing it in your plans. So you have a dedicated space for that. We've seen it. Nikki's writing me a note and saying that she saw it in Stokes' plan and in Winston-Salem's plan. We saw it in Alamance's plan. So those might be folks you can check in with when we're together in April to find out what are they doing and how are they doing that. What does it look like? So they might have a specific wiki or a live binder or a website or a specific place in Google where they're keeping those resources just for district teams to go to, so that you don't have to send out 10 links. Oh, here's lots of things to go sift through. Instead, here's one place to go and find the PowerPoint that you need for your school. And that just makes their work more efficient as well. And then you can also post any communication that you need to for that team. And we'll talk about that more later. So we're going to stop here. We're actually going to take a little break, about a 5-minute break, because we're about at the halfway point. And also, before you head for your 5-minute break, type in the chat box one idea that you can use for your plan, because we've heard a lot this morning. We've heard from our colleagues. We've shared some ideas about alternate and innovative ways to begin our training, to continue our training for a time that we got lost because of the weather. So type in one idea that you can add to your plan, and then we'll take about a 5-minute break, stretch break. Hello, Eva. Eva, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, you guys, we're on. You guys, we're on live again.
We still hear your feedback in the room.
Can you hear me now?
Can't do that. Hey, Eva, can you call in on your phone? Because I had to mute you again because it was like a screeching noise. So I'm going to move on, and Eva, if you can call in on your phone so we can hear you, that would be great. But it's hard for us with the screeching noise in your feedback. Okay. What fantastic ideas. One of the things I wanted to do now is just share some of the things that you all were typing in the box. I'm not sure all of the ideas went to everyone, but here are some of the things that you all were typing in the chat box and question box. The idea of pre-K involvement and that sharing across pre-K to K. Then having a district-specific online space for this work. And then having a plan in place support for new hires. And then also the demo site visits, being able to have a demonstration site visit. That information is also on our wiki in the frequently asked questions page. You know, how do I visit these demo sites? There's a link right to it, so you can go there and set up your demonstration site visit. That's actually sponsored by NCDPI, and you'll be able to visit Walkertown and other demonstration sites across the state. The guiding questions from Rockingham was a hit. So we may be, it would be great, Tiffany, if you could share those, and then maybe we could post those on the wiki as well, because folks are really interested. And then giving teachers an assignment to do prior to the next session, and then including a link to that space that is just dedicated to this work so that they can explore. So great ideas. That collaborative work is really helpful. So Paula had a question about the demonstration site. Yes, it's kindergarten classroom, and those teachers are working and teaching their kids every day, and they welcome visitors. There are a couple of things that I wanted to review from the last meeting. And because we continually get questions on our parking lot about them, so I just wanted to go over our timeline again, and then we'll get into an activity around the formative assessment process. Just to review, we have a phased-in implementation, and this is our timeline. The two constructs statewide 15-16 with the 8 constructs, 16-17. And then we'll have 2 districts in our region for usability that we'll begin working with in 15, and then they will be implementing 3 constructs in 16. And then the 2 required constructs, which are in red, the object counting, book orientation, and print awareness. And I have to say, looking at your plans, you all are already talking about ways to familiarize your teachers with all of the constructs so that they are ready for the following year when all of the constructs will be required. So you all are thinking deeply about this already. I just wanted to share this with you because recently June Atkinson said all students need a support system that addresses physical and emotional needs, and that all children can be successful. So I thought that was fantastic just to hear her support of the work. And some of you have been asking about the K-3 constructs and when they will be ready. The K-3 constructs are in green here. Some of them are still under construction. Some of them are out for review. They'll undergo the same process that the kindergarten entry constructs have gone under, which means first they'll undergo usability testing. So that'll be with the 2 districts in our region. And once they've undergone usability testing, then they'll be edited and changed as the kindergarten constructs were and as the kindergarten entry constructs were, and then they'll be available. So it's going to take some process time before they'll be widely available. Okay. So you all remember this when we said, what is it? And we did the energy stick activity. What I wanted to do today was walk us through, again, using a vignette example. And the way you heard Tiffany talk about it is actually the best way to do it. But here's an alternative as well. I'm going to walk you through a vignette. Here are the materials that you're going to need for this activity. There are 2 handouts, and you'll also need to be looking at the book orientation and print awareness progression. So the reflection template and the current practices template are what you're going to need for this next portion of the webinar. Okay, so let's get started. Just a reminder, this is our definition for formative assessment, that it's a process. Our learned societies have also adopted this definition, so it's a process that's used by teachers and students during instruction, that it's ongoing so that we can adjust our teaching and learning. These are the 5 critical components that we talked about at the last meeting. And we've received definitions of each of these. You have a handout that has these 5 critical components and the definition of each. Okay, we're going to begin with this handout. And what we're going to do is, as I walk you through a vignette, you can take notes on this reflection template. And as a district team member, you can use your own lens for taking notes. So you can jot down notes about the template that I'm describing, or about the vignette that I'm describing. You can be taking notes about a vignette that you would like to use during training. So it's basically your note-taking or reflection template as we go through the process together. I apologize. I've been talking for an hour now, so here we go. So where I'd like to start is at eliciting evidence for learning. Eliciting evidence of learning. So that's the purple part. When we start with the purple part, that's where when I would come together with teachers during the pilot and just say, okay, what are you teaching tomorrow? When we start there, then we can start with, what am I going to observe? So I'm going to walk you just through a quick vignette. And as I go through, we can take notes on the template. So today, while Molly was sitting in the Literacy Center, I prompted her to show me where to begin reading. She quickly pointed to the first word on the page. I wrote a note about this on my clipboard. I next asked Molly to show me a letter and a word. Molly pointed both times to the same place between two letters of the first word on the page. I also noted this. This is eliciting evidence of learning. And I also probed her for some additional information. So what else could I have done to elicit evidence of student learning about print awareness? And how could you do it? So take a couple of notes on your reflection template. Write it on your handout and feel free to use the example from my vignette or begin to take notes about one of your own. And let's move to the next critical component, interpreting the evidence, which is the light blue. Next, we interpret the evidence. So let's find Molly's learning status along the construct progression. Molly's learning status is E for print awareness, based upon what I saw and prompted her to do as she interacted with the book in the Literacy Center. This is how you interpret the evidence and know your next steps. So make a note about that on your reflection handout. Then we adapt and respond to learning needs. This is the orange section of our 5 critical components. So during small group work later that day, I demonstrate for Molly and her group how to frame a letter and how to frame a word using fingers on the print of a big book. I can also show with magnetic letters how we put letters together to make words, and have the students try several examples to make words using the language, letter, and word. This is intentionally responding and adapting to students' current learning status. So make a note about that on your reflection handout. You can use the vignette that I did with Molly and her small group, or you can start to make notes about one you would want to use on your own for your training session. So the next critical component is selecting learning targets. Using the construct progression, I engage Molly during reading conference or during her small group and talk about how she was able to show me where to start reading. The next step is to learn about letters and words and be able to show that you know it. The learning target would be in student-friendly language. I can find a letter. I can find a word. So how would you engage students to set these learning targets? Write an example. You can use the example that I used for Molly, or you can begin to write one of your own on your reflection handout. The next step is developing criteria for success. This is our final critical component. Using the performance descriptors, I provide clear examples of what success looks like for the learning target during small group instruction. Once I've modeled during small group instruction and engaged Molly in setting the learning target, we can develop criteria for success together. Pictures can be posted in the Literacy Center to remind Molly and her group of the letters and words activities. Molly can be prompted to state the learning target in her own language. And you can ask Molly and group members to try the learning activity and model it again so that the criteria is clear. How might you ensure students are clear about how to move forward to success? So this is an activity that you can do as part of your training. You can think about adding it to your plan. You can have teachers use this reflection template, as you heard Tiffany talk about earlier, to find this, the 5 critical components throughout their day. You can model it with them using a vignette and then ask them to go do it in their classrooms. What you want them to see is that this can happen in 1 lesson or 1 to 2 lessons or 1 day, that it's ongoing. The next thing that I wanted us to discuss today, and when we were building this PowerPoint together, this is something that Nikki said, be sure that you say this strong, because when I went past it the first time, I have it on the PowerPoint, but I just want to emphasize it for sure. Utilizing teachers' professional wisdom. When we were doing the pilot together, and we heard this from our presenters today, the first thing we want to do is utilize what teachers already know. So rather than asking them to do something different, we're going to ask them, when can you observe object counting? When can you observe book orientation and print awareness? What are you already doing? So when they're planning together, what are you teaching tomorrow? And what are you going to be able to observe during that teaching? And that's where this handout is really helpful, the current practices handout. So on these current practices, you'll see on this handout, the first column is about the critical component address, the middle column is about the construct progression, and the final column is about the activity that the teachers use together or use in their classroom. So let's just take a moment to brainstorm ideas at your setting. And if you're engaging in this webinar on your own, you can write in this handout independently what critical components that you address, and then connect it to a construct progression, and then what you already do in your classroom. And so we're going to take a moment to do that at your setting. And so you're not going to hear me talk for a couple minutes while you do that on your own. Okay, so one of the questions that I just saw from Paula was about interchanging domains with critical components. So I want to, address that. Let me go back a slide or two. Okay, so these are the 5 critical components of the formative assessment process. And in order to implement formative assessment, you implement these 5 critical components. So you elicit evidence. Okay, she's got it. You elicit evidence, you interpret it, you adapt and respond to students' learning needs, select learning targets, and develop criteria for success. And you do that across 5 domains, right? So you do that for emotional social, you do that for their fine motor development, you do that for their language and learning. So you're looking for, when you're eliciting evidence, you're eliciting evidence based on a whole child perspective, and then you interpret it, and then you respond. So that's where the 5 domains comes in, because we're not just looking at one way that a child is learning or one area that they're learning in. We're eliciting evidence across domains of learning so that we get that whole child perspective. And there were some questions, and I'm sorry I didn't see them sooner, or I would have slowed down a little bit. So the reflection template was just for you to think about as a trainer, something that you could use in your training, and I just provided a vignette as we were walking through the process. So you could either copy down some ideas of the vignette that I shared, or you could start to develop your own vignette for training. It was just to take notes, basically, as a reflection, and to think about ways that you could use it in your plan and in your training. What I wanted to do was review the formative assessment process with you and give you a chance, give you a format for taking notes, and then a way to think about it as a trainer or responding as a learner. So it was up to you what you used it for. So the next step, we're going to be introducing some new content now. The next step is to utilize multiple assessment means, which we've talked a little bit about, but we're going to go into some more detail. Most importantly, that we use a balance of child-initiated and teacher-initiated opportunities for our students to show us what they know. And then first again, that we utilize teachers' professional wisdom, and then if needed, supplement with tools that we have that we've provided called situations. And so for the next portion of this webinar, you'll need the situations. There are 2 for object counting and 1 for emotional literacy, and we'll walk through those together. And I think what I'll do is just pull up